Where's my D20?
Gobbo!
Worth it.
Hello and welcome to Hobb's Horror Stories. I am Hob, your hobgoblin narrator, back to tell you more stories. Today's video is about a creep who doesn't know boundaries as he says something that is unforgivable to his party. This story comes from r/rpg horror stories and was written by Minute Storm. The title of today's story is Creep, Not Happy That He Isn't Allowed to Prey on a Vulnerable Player.
Oh, it's gonna be another one of these types of guys.
I have had a lot of bad experiences over the decades, but this has to be one of the worst ones, because it struck so much more personal than anything else I've experienced before.
Alright, I got the knife. Gonna make it extra rusty this time.
The group is full of adults, all 30 plus, a friend of my wife, a woman we'll call Clara, a friend of mine who we'll call Lou, and a friend of my friend who was suggested to me because he is a great role player, not a number cruncher.
I don't like the way you said that. Is this the guy? Is this the guy I gotta shank?
Who couldn't really find any groups lately. You know, it's always kind of suspicious when someone's such a great role player but they can't find a group. And surprise, surprise, this is the problem guy, who I'll call Phil.
Yes, Phil. Truly a terrible name for a terrible person. Unless your name is Phil and you watch your videos, in which case you're a fantastic person.
Finally, a close friend of the family, V. V was the main reason I run this weekly group right now, because she has been through an incredibly tough period lately. She lost her husband due to a sudden cerebral hemorrhage and is still recovering after her failed suicide attempt recently.
Oh, wow, that's a horrible thing to have happen. Putting all jokes aside here for a moment, because this is an important thing to me. Depression and mental health is a fickle thing, and it affects everyone in different ways, but it's never to be taken lightly. For any of our viewers here, if anyone you know has been going through a rough patch in their life, reach out to them. Let them know that they're not alone, and that you're there for them. And if you're feeling down yourself, remember that there are people that you can talk to. Heck, if you're in our Discord server, then you're more than welcome to DM me and I'll lend an ear. Each and every one of you guys is important, and the world would be worse off without you. Oh, okay. I know hearing a little speech like that on a tiny tabletop channel on a D&D horror story is a bit odd, but it's a conversation that's very important to me. Oh boy, okay, I have no idea how to transition back into the video, so, take it away, Hob.
We had a lot of concerns about her well-being, and we are making sure she wasn't alone. It's been a long and hard period of trying to get her mood up, even a little bit, but she is working out pretty well with role-playing games, as she seemed to be easily absorbed by them. This is a side note for everyone. Roleplay games can be great and great ways to get someone out of the house, get someone out of their comfort zone, but it should definitely not be the substitute option for therapy. If someone is going through all of that, make sure that they're seeking proper therapy as well, and not just relying on these games to try and help their problems. It never does quite what you think it's going to, and it can cause a lot more issues for that person. Alright, back to the story. Unfortunately, Phil's idea of role-playing quickly turned out to be a bit more personal than expected. He quickly flirted in-game with the two women and was quickly told to knock it off. After a little bit of back and forth, he toned it down, but instead stuck to a comedic, unreciprocated love towards Clara, which she thought was funny too. It worked okay for a few sessions, and then the mood was pretty good. The dynamic seemed to work.
Okay, so yes, it can be a funny dynamic, and I've seen it done well myself in a previous party I've played in. But if this Phil jerk does that after trying to flirt and being told to tone it down, in character or not, this is just a bad situation just waiting to happen. 5 gold I got off a dead guy says he'll take Claire's amusement as a go-ahead to make advances and be creepy.
That is until one session 2 weeks ago where during a short break Lou asked why the kitchen door was locked. It's an old built-in lock we don't use ourselves, but it came with the kitchen. Phil had locked V in there to talk to her about stuff related to the game and such.
Red flag, get the battering ram, bust it down, this ain't gonna go well.
Now, we're adults, and V acted like usual when they came out. Phil seemed more pissed than before, so we figured it was Phil coming with a bad suggestion that V shot down since she didn't seem too bothered, and her confirming that she was fine. So we let it go, only making it very clear that the kitchen should not be locked under any circumstance. Then we got to our last session. Phil was acting more flirty than usual, not just in-game either, and even making my wife, who wasn't part of the game, uncomfortable.
Called it. I called it. I won the bet. Give me the gold.
Lou tried to excuse his behavior as him having a bad day, and we got him to calm down. Until during a short break, my wife noticed Phil had locked the door to the kitchen again to trap V in there. My wife only overheard him asking her why she was cold towards him, to which V gave a cold short, "I don't really like you," response before she unlocked and left the kitchen herself, seemingly unfazed. My wife got pretty angry at Phil. The kitchen door can be locked, but it absolutely shouldn't be locked under those circumstances. As we made it very clear previously, according to my wife, Phil's excuse was, "V keeps avoiding me and I wanted to make sure that she'd respond properly to some questions I had." My wife didn't like that response, and neither do I. I mean, that would get him punched in the face if he was at my house. Unsurprisingly, she came back to me and made it pretty clear to me that she wants Phil out of the house. Not having heard it myself and truly hoping this was a misunderstanding, my wife and I brought it up as we were sitting back down at the table. Edit. For additional clarification, the intention was to know what had happened, and if he had done more than just talk. My wife essentially wanted to know if she should just have him leave, or if we should call the cops. Instead of coming with any kind of excuse, Phil just got pissy. He turned to V and with the most ridiculous sentence I have ever heard in a long time, said, "If her husband is dead and she wants to die anyway, why is it such a big deal to ask if she wants to make another guy happy?" Oh my god, I fucking choked trying to say that.
I almost threw up in my mouth, and I'm not even the one who had to read that line. I don't even know if this guy belongs more in a straitjacket and a mental ward, or just plain 6 feet under. What kind of absolute psycho says that?
Lou, being Phil's friend, didn't even say a word, as he just quickly slipped out into our backyard to hide, not even going to pretend to defend Phil.
So, wait, he knew the whole time, and he invited Phil, this is gonna give me a migraine.
V just instantly packed up her things and left, clearly pushed beyond her level of comfort, with my wife following her out the door. This left me and Clara, and we were crystal clear that Phil leaves right now and will not be coming back under any circumstance. Phil tried to argue very briefly, but quickly got the hint, packed up, and left. I still don't know how Lou didn't know about this, but he seemed just as surprised and baffled at the incredibly insensitive and borderline predatory behavior by Phil. Also, upfront note, yeah, I did not handle this well. That's the main reason this infuriates me. I should have dealt with this much sooner. OP, there are some times where, especially when you're DMing and trying to handle the whole game, where you don't notice things going on. I've had times before at a table where someone was uncomfortable, but I'm trying to balance so many things that I don't realize it at the time, and then I have to go back later and kind of play this game of cleanup where you're talking to the person and trying to work everything out and make everyone feel better at the game. The main thing with this, though, is that if you were constantly telling Phil to stop and to have to knock off the behavior that he was doing, that was a sign right from the beginning that you need to keep a close eye on him at the very least. Phil, from the brief description in the story, does not seem like the kind of guy that you want to leave alone with any woman, so Definitely don't leave him alone with the woman who is grieving the loss of her husband. This dude seems like the type of guy who just goes after whatever person he views as the most vulnerable at the table and vulnerable in social situations. This guy is a complete piece of garbage, and honestly, if you would have punched him in the face, I would be applauding you right now, because he should have been punched in the face. Like, beyond anything else, he's in your house, you tell him to leave. If he's gonna argue with you and not want to leave, punch him in the face. Perfect excuse right there. One thing for all DMs out there to pay attention to, and even players out there, if you notice this happens to somebody at the table where an event happens and it to you seems like it was a stressful event, but they don't seem bothered at the moment, sometimes you need to go back later and talk to the person. People have different responses to stressful events. Some people shut down, some people run away from the area, some people don't mention it at all, but that doesn't mean that nothing happened and that there wasn't something wrong going on just because they didn't react. Pay attention to little signs where something may be happening behind closed doors or in an area that's just out of earshot. Altogether, with all TTRPGs, everyone at the table should feel comfortable, everyone should feel safe, and everyone should be able to come there and have a good time. No one should have to sit back and worry about this person is going to be there and you have to go and confront somebody who's causing more issues for you. The biggest problem you should have when playing one of these games and playing through some D&D is the big bad evil guy that you have to face, and the problems in the world that your fantasy character is facing. With that, I think it is time to wrap up today's video. I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you have any stories you would like to have read here on the channel, please share them to the email in the description below. Or, if you want to see the Goblin Grotto and join our little goblin community, there is also a link to our Discord. If you could please like, comment, and subscribe, it would help us greatly to slay the monster known as the algorithm. Thank you for your time from all of us here at Goblins and Gremlins.